Oh, hi, Mark.
Hello, and welcome to the Even Worse podcast, where the films are bad and the podcast is even worse. I'm your host, Matthew Rogers. Joining me today,
Drew Myers.
Kate McCarley, how's it going?
Joshua Summers.
All right, so today we watched The Happening, the M Night Shyamalan classic disaster, The Happening, starring Mark Wahlberg, Zooey Deschanel, other people who are less important.
Hot Dog Man.
Okay, so Cade,
Yeah,
you're
what's up?
expert. You're expert for this week. Hit me with them facts.
So, there's really not that much to say other than M Night Shyamalan. I mean, he's had a lot of success. He's probably has had the most varying career out of any.
So what at this point has already come out?
So he almost his entire.
Signs.
Yeah. So he had The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
Oscar-nominated movie. You know, people are calling him the next Steven Spielberg.
Because Sixth Sense is incredible.
Yes. Then he had Unbreakable, which
Fantastic.
more underrated movie.
I liked it.
Still very good.
One of my favorites.
Signs. Most people can agree it's a good movie. Some people don't like the twist ending.
Whatever.
The Village. Most people hated when it came out. It's since began to attract a cult following. Lady in the Water.
Really good.
I believe the same thing about the cult following. And The Last Airbender, which is my least favorite movie of all time. It's
that was terrible.
piece of garbage.
You refuse to watch The Last Airbender, right?
I will not watch The Last Airbender.
I know. We wanted to put it on the podcast list.
If y'all put it on the podcast, I will not be there this week. I refuse to watch
We'll
it.
definitely put it on there.
No.
Good.
Oh,
Can we
man.
watch The Last Airbender every week?
Yeah.
No.
there we
So
go,
this
exactly.
is right at the beginning of his kind of theoretical shitstorm.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of his end,
this
right?
is his first R-rated film, and the way
Wow.
Was it
I
R-rated?
guess the coolest thing about this film is the way it was advertised. I mean, it was advertised as like it had M Night Shyamalan in the commercials saying people were terrified, they were physically sick after seeing this film. You know,
I mean, I was
he was
sick,
really
but-
he was really pushing it to be this hardcore like science fiction horror film, like the next big thing.
So he was actually in the
In
the
it, and
advertisements,
then
like the Hitchcock
yes,
type thing?
yes, and then once the critics saw it and everything, he backtracked and said, "No, it's a B movie. It's supposed to be entertaining. It's supposed to be funny." So
It's one of those reversal of
yeah,
expectations.
we don't
things.
know exactly what it is. What we do know is it's hilarious. That's what I do
Well,
know.
it's something. So that advertising you're talking about reminds me sort of the Paranormal Activity advertising,
yeah.
where it was like
They show like
Well, they put
audience.
people in the
Yeah.
theaters,
screaming.
right?
Yes.
and like Paranormal Activity, pretty scary movie.
Yeah.
The Happening,
Disagree.
not
Paranormal
Conversation for
Activity,
another
I don't
day.
know if it was very
okay.
scary.
I don't like scary movies, so every scary movie is scary for me.
This movie had some scary parts for sure. There were some pop-ups like I'm not saying like
Also
it wasn't
disagree.
a scary movie, but it attempted to be like
yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
for sure.
I think it's trying to be more of a disaster film.
And I
though.
remember as a kid, watching the ads. Those people that just like start walking and then stand still.
Yeah.
You remember. I
Right.
mean,
My
we were probably too
I,
young.
I
but-
think that brings me into the first thing about this movie. I think the main thing wrong with this movie, besides the acting, I think the main thing wrong is that the deaths of the suicides
Final
are
Destination.
funny.
okay,
They're
hold
not-
on.
they're not
Hold on.
scary.
Before we get into that, let's do like initial ratings. Drew.
Okay.
We had first thing I
Or
saw.
initial impressions,
The
not
impressions
ratings.
again, just to bring up the acting. Mark Wahlberg is really a great actor.
But
My
terrible
favorite-
in this film.
Yeah, my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies is Boogie Nights, and I think he did an amazing job in that movie.
great
I mean,
movie.
so many movies he's been
Wonderful
in.
movie.
Other guys, I know it's a comedy, but he's still great in that movie, and he was just awful. He was off like
This one's a comedy too. Cade.
Yeah.
Initial impressions.
So I've seen this before,
Uh-huh.
and I enjoy it for what it is. I think it's pretty hilarious. So I really do enjoy watching it. I like to study M Night Shyamalan films, except The Last Airbender.
Study.
Yeah,
Sorry.
because they're interesting. I mean, how can one guy make such great movies and then make The Last
George
Airbender
Lucas.
or this?
George Lucas.
Okay, I think George Lucas just has issues with screenplay, but
I think George
once
Lucas
again,
has issues with like loving himself too much.
another conversation for another day.
All right, Josh, initial impressions.
I think to put it simply, that you can kind of summarize it with it's an intriguing premise and just awful execution. And
I agree.
That's a very specific statement, but I think it works pretty well with this. What
Yeah.
was the budget of this film?
So
Here, I
the
can.
budget-
No, Drew, look up budget. Cade, what were you saying
the
about
budget is $48 million.
48
$48
okay.
million
And
for
it
a disaster
made
movie.
$163 million. Very
So it's
box office success.
$40 million success.
Yeah. Almost
I'm sure a lot of that
$200
was
million.
probably in the opening weekend where they were like, "Oh, it's the new
Before
Shyamalan
it
movie.
came
Let's
out.
go
Yeah.
see it." And then it, people saw it and were like, "Oh, this is terrible."
One of my favorite things about this movie is the tagline.
Which is
We've sensed it. We've seen the signs. Now it's happening.
You got us.
title drop.
Great.
All right, so
Great
we got to get in the
tagline.
plot of this. We've already talked too long about other random things that don't matter. So
Okay,
who
plot.
wants to get the plot rundown?
Josh, you go for it.
All right, so Marky Mark is a science teacher in Philadelphia, I believe, and the plot centers around him and his wife, who are escaping maybe a terrorist epidemic or
A presumed
a
terrorist
pre-
epidemic.
a big
epidemic.
terrorist attack, or it's kind of an epidemic. And basically, the story is Marky Mark traveling through the New England area,
Northeast.
trying to escape and understand what's going on in the world. The main premise is that people are in mass committing suicide for reasoning unknown. So we follow Mark. I'm going to say Marky Mark again.
No, go for it.
As he and Zoe Deschanel are exploring the terrains of great American landscape
Great
like
American
Pennsylvania.
Northeast.
Yeah.
Which, anyways, okay, Cade,
Yeah, what's up?
you, before I interrupted you so
Yeah.
rudely, I apologize.
Oh, it's okay.
You're saying about the funny suicides. What were you saying about that?
Okay, so basically, this epidemic or whatever it is, as we find out later in the movie, but it makes people kill themselves.
Mhm.
And
Like Josh just said.
and this is where the movie is supposed to get creepy and scary, and I think this is the one of, only to the acting, the biggest problem in this movie is that these suicides are funny.
Right.
They're not scary.
They're very funny.
Arguably
They're
funnier than Final Destination.
Yes.
which
They're
is
like
supposed to be
Wilhelm
funny.
scream
Yes,
moments.
I mean when those guys are falling off the building.
It's raining men.
Yeah, you used to sing it. It's raining
Well,
men.
I mean, I think you can imagine it. The comparison I made was, can you imagine if Titanic, spoiler alert, when the
Yeah.
Titanic crashes?
Wait,
Wait, the
what?
Titanic crashed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
God.
can you imagine when James Cameron's film, when the people had jumped off, if their deaths had just been very comical looking?
Oh
just
well,
made
that
you-
propeller guy was
Exactly.
pretty great.
Like, if that had made you laugh, would that have even made
Yeah.
an emotional impact? And obviously, you have people committing suicide. The reason the movie's R-rated,
Yeah.
and then you have it. You're using this aspect, which could be used, greatly, and
Right.
it's the thing that kind of turns
just
you off
weak.
from the horror aspect
Yeah.
of the film.
I mean, they have like one of the suicides is this guy turns on a lawnmower, a
I
big
was gonna say,
lawnmower,
it's
and
my
just
favorite.
lays under the lawnmower, and like. That's just funny. The way it goes about, the way it's shot,
We were
the
saying
way
this
the guy
during-
acts it out.
During
It's
the
just
movie,
funny.
we were saying like it's kind of like that Austin Powers scene where they're in
Yeah.
the ice rink and it's like,
Yes.
like literally 50 feet away and the guy's just still like sitting there. It's just
Well, it's funny, this being a big budget film, moderately big
Yeah.
budget
Yeah.
film,
More money than we have.
and you have a horror movie with no special effects, no villain,
Yeah.
you seeing nothing. They literally, the villain is the theoretical wind.
Right,
That's
well,
what's shot.
I think it's Shyamalan's trying to hit environmentalism here. I think that's what he's trying to beat it over his audience's
I
head.
agree.
And I think it's just a weird way of doing it. And it's not clear.
Right.
I mean,
but-
he did hint on like the bees are dying at an alarming rate,
Right.
which is like a serious problem that
true.
is happening now.
the
Hey
bees.
guys, let me ask you this.
seriously, save the bees.
I feel like bees
Save
have
the
become a
bees.
reoccurring on the
true.
Even Worse podcast.
Welcome to the Even Worse podcast. We're sponsored by bees.
Sponsored by bees.
Save the bees.
Save the bees, guys.
It's
They're
the
pretty.
bee's knees.
They're pretty important.
Let's kind of move on. Like I think that overall, I have to disagree with you, Josh. I think that this was a terrible concept for a film. The idea of just
Really?
like
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay.
I just don't like it.
This is
What
the
what
first
is this thing?
disagreement.
What is this? Like it's a disease that makes you kill yourself.
But
the
isn't that an
plants made?
interesting concept? If
it's kind of like The Purge, That's pretty
How is that
interesting
anything-
how is
concept.
that
anything
It's a
like
pretty
The
interesting
Purge?
No,
concept.
The
I
Purge
see-
was something that like
I
was
see
created
your
by the
point.
government.
I see your point, but I think you're only saying that because
Because it was
the
executed, so-
outcome
Yeah.
is
That could be.
terrible. Say this, was directed by, we already talked about Spielberg, and it's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Could
Done
be.
well throughout the whole film. The concept is executed. I think you'd be saying something different.
I
I
think-
get that it's weird.
yeah.
I get that it's out there, but with Shyamalan, I don't think it's too far.
They
Do y'all
just,
wanna hear
they just
something
never
crazy?
attempted to explain it. But yeah, what's
Yeah.
crazy?
So
hit me with that craziness.
Roger Ebert, probably the most highly acclaimed
Well-known.
film critic of all time, awarded this movie 3 stars out of 4,
Wow.
What?
saying it was oddly
What?
touching and and it is no doubt too thoughtful for the summer action season, but I appreciate the quietly realistic way Shyamalan finds to tell a story about the possible death of a man.
Roger Ebert's mood ring was clearly purple
Yeah,
during
oh,
this.
man.
He was just like, oh, I love M Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, how much did he get paid for that?
Yeah.
Reminds me of the
Probably a
Turkish
ton.
Airlines thing.
Remember
Oh.
the hundreds of critics though that liked the Phantom Menace and wanted to ride on George Lucas. So they
The Phantom Menace.
sometimes
yeah.
it's just
Come back.
wise to see a movie yourself and
I
not
mean,
listen to people on a
yeah.
podcast talk about the movie.
So I guess we can just move right on to Marky Mark.
Marky Mark.
Marky
About to go
Mark.
there,
Yeah.
Which, Drew said it. Fantastic actor.
Great
has
actor.
done incredible things. And I don't know what was happening in this film. It is clearly bad direction.
It's-
Yeah.
You can tell it's just terrible direction. It's not.
And
It's not his
I
fault.
will say this: Mark Wahlberg has since retracted being involved in this film, and I quote, here's a quote straight by him: "It was a really bad movie. Fuck it. It is what it is. Fucking trees, man. The plants. Fuck it. You can't blame me for not wanting to play a science teacher. At least I wasn't playing a cop or a crook."
Well, okay. The funny thing about that, what he said
Yeah.
about the plants of the trees, is kind of what I imagine. Like talking about the special effects, actors can't act as scared or as weirded out when they don't know what they're being
Yeah.
afraid of. Or
See,
they're
but-
supposed to be afraid
Okay,
of.
but I've seen actors act more scared of like literally looking at nothing and then it's CGI'd in later than like these guys were of blowing plants.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
at
but
least-
I don't know. I think a little bit of that. Yeah, you're right about. Part of it is a direction thing. Part of it is Marky Mark rolled the fat blunt before
Yeah.
filming.
I just think
Yeah.
it's.
It wasn't a fat blunt. It was something
You bring it back to like
Yeah.
people are being scared of like inanimate things. Like I think that's like a huge like problem with the movie. I also think it's funny that all the Americans just assume it's terrorism. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as
Yeah.
something bad happens, like oh.
I mean,
terrorists.
Honestly,
but-
it's not far-fetched.
Yeah,
though.
it's
No,
not. It,
that's
I think that's exactly how most people would react if this
Yeah.
happened.
that might be the only accurate part
Yeah.
of this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Marky Mark has some pretty
Mhm.
memorable lines.
Are we looking for your
Taking interest in
favorites?
science and what? No. Just the way he delivers this is hilarious.
And so, as a person who had never seen the film, but I had seen that clip of him,
Right.
if you're like, you're here to kill me, and
Right.
and he's like, what? No, I was like, oh, that's just a really poorly directed scene. And literally, the first time
Yeah.
you see Mark Wahlberg, he's like, hey guys,
Hey.
we're gonna
What
talk
the
about
bees?
science today.
Hey,
the
man,
bees are
let's talk
disappearing at
about
an
the bees.
alarming
Your
rate.
perfect face is gonna be perfect forever.
So creepy.
Your nose is gonna grow,
Yes.
man.
Speaking of the high school, what kind of high school just lets all the teachers just leave in the middle? Like literally every single teacher is
A
in the
high
in the
school that is
auditorium
under
meeting.
terrorism.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So, Mark Wahlberg, as
Uh-huh.
bad as he is in
He
this
starred
film,
in this, yeah.
he is not the worst actor
no.
taking part in this film.
No.
Okay.
I have to
yeah,
give
who
that
is?
one to Miss Zoe Deschanel.
Zoe.
She was bad.
What?
She
No.
is.
What?
There's so much evil that's been created.
Yeah.
She
She's
really
another
is
one of those,
bad.
and this is also a problem with the dialogue. How she would just be like, "I'm upset."
Right.
Like, don't
Yeah.
tell us you're upset.
She in this film, and she's good too.
Miles
You know,
Teller.
she's a
She's
great
very
actress
talented.
She's been in
herself.
some good stuff.
But
for sure.
she
Shout out to 500 Days of Summer.
works. She's very a typecast actress. I see.
Mhm.
She works as
Mhm.
the quirky, goofy kind of.
New girl.
This was not her at all, and
No.
completely miscast. And
I think she was cast because of star power. I mean, they were like, let's just get Zoe Deschanel in this movie. People like her.
and that's
maybe
the thing.
throw
I
her
think we
in.
talked about this last time. No matter what the cast, like Now You See Me. I know
Yeah.
some people love that movie.
Yeah.
I hate that. I think it's one of the
Awesome.
worst movies ever.
Awesome
We should
movie.
do it on the show.
No, we
Now You See
shouldn't.
Me has.
It's
Oh no, you gotta
incredible
do the,
movie.
you gotta do the sequel.
It-
Yeah,
yeah,
sequel,
yeah,
Drew.
yeah. Well, what I was saying is that no matter how many stars are in that movie, Morgan
lot.
4
Freeman,
to 5.
Dave Franco, which I hate Dave Franco.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Mark
but
Ruffalo.
the
Anyway,
point
there's
is,
a lot.
it
There's
doesn't
like
matter
8.
if every single person is a star; it can still be a bad movie.
yeah, the
Right.
movie that comes to mind for me is movie 43.
Is
I've
it
not seen it.
Horrible movie.
Don't watch it. It's
Horrible
the
terrible.
movie.
the most star power probably any movie ever when
Yeah,
you think
it's
about
like-
all the cameos and everything
Yeah.
that's in that film.
And it is a horrible film.
But we
But
are
like those
never going to
Valentine's
watch
Day
it on
movies
this.
is another great example.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez, yes.
For sure.
Okay, so we're talking a little bit about Zooey Deschanel, and in there you were like, she just says what she feels, and it's
Right.
like that's not her fault. That is the script's fault. So let's break it down because seriously, we always come to this on every bad movie that we talk about. It's the script. It all
really is.
It all
And-
starts from the script.
and-
You never have a bad movie that comes from a great script.
Can we talk about how we have another Holy Trinity?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Different Holy Trinity.
Different
you,
Holy
Tommy.
Trinity.
Put on
Yeah,
to,
Mr. M. Night Shyamalan gave us the Holy Trinity, written, directed, and produced.
That's his mantra. That's his thing.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
And in some of his movies, starring.
but not truly this time.
He was just the voice of Joey.
Let's talk about Joey for a second. Let's talk about the whole side story of Joey. I feel that that's just so irrelevant, and then, or not irrelevant, but it's just so like silly that they'd be
Yeah.
talking about a silly like relationship.
You
and
want
went
to
go-
talk about that like more?
Yeah.
like,
So basically,
specifically?
what happened was, they're finding out about this terrible disease that's going around, and they're on the bus, and this is when it's kind of first mentioned, I think.
Right.
And they're on the bus or the train or whatever, and they're
Well,
talking
right
about
before that, she's like getting phone calls from him, and
yeah,
she's dodging
and,
them.
and they're basically there's this they have a little thing going on. Basically, she's been fooling around a little bit with this guy named Joey.
She was getting dessert with him.
Yeah, tiramisu. Anyway, and this whole like throughout the film, they come back to it, and it's just like literally the person that right next to you just got shot, and the next scene they're talking about this stupid like relationship. I just think it was it was to fill time. It already was a short movie, 90 minutes.
Yeah.
It didn't even feel like 90 minutes.
I think
felt
it
like,
just gave them like a side conflict, and I think
Right.
M Night Shyamalan was like, "Oh man, I need a side plot. All right, we got married people. Let's throw in like a cheater." You know,
But that could have been done really well because one of the first things that's mentioned is that she was like not willing to commit to a marriage.
Right.
Yes.
And then you've got the side plot that she could be unfaithful, or we kind of suspect that she's unfaithful
But
to
what's the
Marky
point
Mark.
of everyone's dying?
Right.
But at the same time, we could have had more of the side plot focus on their relationship, and instead it's, I mean, obviously
The
we
stakes
realize
just
it
change from
filters
life or
out.
death to but do you love me? Do you not love me?
I think so. Here in my genius, because clearly we're all geniuses about movies.
Yeah.
We
Of
all
course,
know
yes,
everything
of
about
course.
movies, and we could make the greatest movie ever.
Right.
But we choose to make a terrible podcast instead.
Mm-hmm.
I think in probably the original draft of the script, I bet Joey was a character that appeared.
Played
that
by M Night Shyamalan.
probably
I'm
played,
calling
yeah,
it right now.
played by M Night Shyamalan, and then they like met him out in the field, and he was out
Yeah.
there, and that created this conflict.
that could have worked.
That's
and-
more of a
and that
Walking
coulda
Dead trope.
worked.
Yeah.
And it is a Walking Dead trope, obviously, but the Walking Dead hadn't come, the TV show hadn't been out,
Right.
the graphic novels obviously had. And I'm sure that's probably what the original thing was. They were like, let's have Joey be here, and it's sort of like a Shane, Rick, Lori kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stuff, Lori. Things.
But I just think that he eventually was just written out of it, or maybe cut out of it, maybe edited,
Perhaps.
Sure.
And that
Maybe Mark Wahlberg was like, fuck this movie.
Yeah.
They had time
And
to expand upon that. But the movie's only an hour 30 minutes. Obviously, most
They could've-
they knew the
yeah,
time they were
they could
looking
have
for.
cut out a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
and
Most definitely.
Could have been it could have been a Twilight Zone episode. Have we said that before?
Yeah, last
Did I
time.
say that
Something
last
about,
time?
And, and it
Twilight
still
Zone.
holds. It still
Yeah,
holds.
Wicker
Yeah.
This movie was a lot similar to, I forgot what the movie was called.
The Wicker
Wicker
Man.
Man. In that it
Nailed
was
it.
like a type of science fiction kind
Yeah.
of.
not the beast.
What if this happened? So
It
this
also,
happened.
both movies tried to teach us something,
Right.
but
Yeah.
failed at it.
This
Yeah.
one felt
Be
way
good to the environment.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. So what was the Wicker Man's whole thing? Like, what were they trying to teach?
guess it
us?
was a matriarchy type thing?
Yeah, it was sexism, feminism, stuff like that.
Okay.
And it didn't really work out
because
that
it played to
that
an
well.
extreme.
yeah. And I didn't even get that from the Wicker Man.
Right.
But but from what was it called? The Happening.
Right.
I definitely got
The environmentalism.
the environmentalism
Yeah.
thing, because right at the end it was like we're killing the plants, and this is my impression of that scientist dude. It's a terrible impression.
Yeah.
But they were just like, hey, plants are dying, and then plants are going to fight back. And I don't know if plants like actually can fight back, but it was like, hey man, maybe take a step back and like think about what you're doing to the planet.
And that was another problem I had, is they never had a resolution. They did, but they didn't. In a way, this is the kind of remind me of like World War Z. They're trying to find a cure this whole time. We're kind of trying to find a cure and kind of trying not to find
And literally
a
the cure was, let's just be sick.
Yeah, and so exactly, like at least in like World War Z, like we find out there's a cure, like, or not necessarily a cure, but like you know what I mean.
Right.
There's a way
Sure.
to.
There's a resolution to this,
Around
and this
it.
we just kind of it just ends.
Well, I like to build upon that and kind of branch it to another segment, that this is an M Night Shyamalan film with no twist, not even the slightest
true.
bit of a
And-
twist.
But you see that in his. I apologize earlier. This is a film came out in 2008, so it was before The Last Airbender.
Yes.
So this was really his first really bad
This was
movie.
his first
Right.
flop.
Not
So,
his last.
but it wasn't a flop
No.
because it made a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
can someone, Drew, can I borrow your iPad? I want to look up how much it made in that opening weekend versus how much it made after
so M Night Shyamalan,
that. Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously he's very well known for his twists and stuff, and maybe when he stops using these things and he tries to go into this more science fiction horror type thing, it fails. But we see him go into horror more with The Visit and Split, which were both pretty good movies to me.
He did
Half-
Split. I didn't
half
know he
agree.
did Split.
So I do have an important question for all y'all, though.
Go for it.
What is y'all's favorite hot dog topping?
Oh, my
Yeah, let's talk about
gosh.
that guy for a
Yeah.
second. That was another example, like a way that I was talking about how they just like have these like random dialogues throughout
Yeah.
the movie that are just like they're trying to be funny.
And I think that, was he really trying to make a B movie, or was he trying to make a horror? Because you have characters like that hot dog guy who come in and say, "Oh, I like hot dogs. They have protein. What's your favorite hot dog topping?"
In my opinion, that felt more just like so obviously they needed that character to like introduce the fact that it might be the plants.
Right.
And so if he had just walked in and been like, "Oh, I think it might be the plants," someone would have critiqued it and been like, "Oh, this guy is just a plot device." But they're like, "Okay, he needs to talk about
Yeah.
something."
Let's just make it hot dogs.
Hot dogs.
I think the thing about the B movie thing, if like Tarantino or like kind of the auteur had made a film like this, it'd be like, obviously he knows what he's trying to make. He knows what genre
Yeah.
he's into. He's very conscious of this. It could be, I mean, to give him a little bit of credit, maybe he just sold it a certain way, but really had something else on
It
his
could
mind.
be, yeah.
Shyamalan, The Happening is kind of the perfect B movie title. That the ing at the
Yeah.
end of a title is a dead giveaway, but the dialogue ripped straight out of something from a 50s,
So
60s.
you want to know the way I see it? I think Shyamalan did make this as a B movie. He wanted it to be a movie, wanted it to
You
be
keep
a
saying
B movie.
and I'm thinking like
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld. Sorry, keep going.
So he wanted it to be a B movie, but he knew, or that whoever took the marketing of this film made it sound like it's this creepy horror, like disaster film, and that really worked for him because look at the box office return.
Sure.
The marketing in this film was very, very good, but it marketed it not what it really was.
Right.
So
So speaking of the box office once more. Okay, so it made $64 million domestic.
wow,
So it made $100,000 foreign.
that's very good.
Or 100
for-
million, sorry,
for
100
an
million
R-rated
foreign.
film.
64 million domestic. Half of that was in the opening weekend.
Wow.
And I think,
Wow.
and then honestly, once someone tells me a movie is bad, I'm gonna go see it just because it's bad. Like
Yeah.
that was my thing with Batman versus Superman. I was like, people sort of ragged on like Man of Steel, and I was like, that's not that bad. And then Batman versus Superman came out, and I was like, okay, well, I have to go. And then it got bad reviews. And I was like, okay, I have to see it at some
Right.
point. And so I went to the theater and I saw it, and I was like, not that bad. And so I think a lot of that intrigue and that pull and that money that they got was because they were getting bad reviews, and people were like, "Oh, but it's M Night Shyamalan. Like
Right.
he can't do bad. It must just be
Yeah,
people's opinions."
It's kind of like people say about Hateful Eight. I loved Hateful Eight, but a lot of people say they don't
Too
like
long.
it. It's a Tarantino movie. You're going to go see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like, Michael Bay in an interview was talking about the new Ninja Turtles movie. And in the interview, he said, it's a Michael Bay film. You're going to go see it.
Yeah.
That's the reason
Yeah.
not to go see it.
Yeah,
Because,
no, for sure.
I mean, I
Yeah,
have
a certain
seen both
director's
of the
got a
Ninja
name.
Turtles
Right.
movies.
Well, I think
And
that's
Michael Bay's kinda losing it now.
interesting that you mentioned that. Yeah, it's Tarantino. You're going to go see it, but a filmmaker can only have a select amount of failures before it's like, oh, it's a Tarantino movie. Might as well not
Yeah.
see it. Obviously,
Well, I
that's
think-
not going to happen.
I think
to him.
Shyamalan became that. You
That's
know?
what I'm trying to.
It was
get
like
at.
it was like The Happening is like, oh, it's a Shyamalan. We have to go see it, and it was
And it's
bad.
like,
and
oh
then
wait,
it was like, oh, okay, he's doing Airbender. That's
and then
fine.
you've got Airbender.
Already has
Yeah,
a story.
so-
It'll be great. He doesn't have to write anything. And then that was bad too. And they're like,
going in, it was Airbender. I mean, how good could it have been?
excuse me.
Well, live action.
Yeah.
You go
The
live action
greatest-
of most animated things. It's like, yeah, okay. But
So-
we won't get into that.
Shyamalan, he really isn't. I really do. Some of his best films are very, very good films, and he
Yes.
has shown to be a very capable and talented director. And I don't know what happened in The Happening. I don't know what happened in The Last Airbender, and I don't know what happened in After Earth.
Oh, that's right. He did that too.
Yeah, we forgot about After
Jeez.
Earth.
It's
Now, I will
okay.
not watch that film either because it is a snooze fest.
I've never seen it.
I can't wait
I
to
was
see
so
Will
excited
Smith
for
through
it.
most of that movie.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Yeah.
All right,
Not
what
a
is-
big fan of Jaden Smith, though, either. So,
Oh, God.
we don't have to rag on that now. Everyone, it's kind of an understood at this
I
point.
love
Yeah.
the Karate
What,
Kid.
what was y'all's favorite scene? I'm gonna go ahead and say mine. My favorite scene was definitely when they went to that, like, I don't know, whoever was in that house, and they were like, that kid was like, we just want some fucking food.
give it to us, pussies.
Yeah.
Well, to give
God.
some background around that, so they're looking for a place to stay.
They're in,
get
like, the
shelter,
middle of
get
nowhere,
food. They're in the middle
yeah.
of nowhere.
Right.
They don't even live anywhere near this area, and they find this kind of. You can imagine it more like the old kook from a Scooby Doo movie.
It's
being
honestly, it's like a New England country home,
Wow.
and so you sort of expect these people to at least like sound normal. But I'm pretty sure the guy was like,
Yeah.
"Who are you? What are you doing
they
out
sound
here?"
like they sound like the people from Wrong Turn.
yeah.
If y'all have ever seen
No.
those films, we might have to do some Wrong Turn marathon
Oh,
here on the
no.
Even
No
Worse
one get too
podcast.
excited.
Oh, jeez, can't wait. I love watching bad
But yeah,
movies.
like Drew said, anyways, they go up to this house, and the immediate reaction of these people is to kind of to tell them to like to scram to get away from the house. Obviously, they're wary about people because they know about the epidemic.
I heard it on
And
the news.
and Drew, you want to explain about the one kid?
This kid, I mean,
Spencer Breslin.
Yeah,
it was
Mhm.
him. Yeah, so he's like, knock on this door. He's like, let us in, we want food. And the guy's like, he's like, no. And the
He's
guy
like,
just
"We
like
can't open the
screaming at him,
doors."
and it's just like random, like out of nowhere, just screams like, we just want some food, you pussies. And he's like, what else did he say? He's
And then he
like-
gets shot.
yeah, and then we were talking about this in the movie. He comes out with, I believe, a rifle. We're pretty sure it's a rifle.
I guess
thought
it's
it was
a
a rifle.
shotgun
It
because
looked
it like
like a
goes
rifle.
all
It didn't look-
over.
It looked like a rifle.
and
Looks
but
like a
sure enough, he
rifle.
shoots him, and he got like 5 holes come out of his back. So
Yeah.
we're kind of confused.
Yeah,
What weapon was used?
My favorite part
Hollywood
was
has never
the
done
And
weapons.
hey, the black guy was not the first one to die.
second
True.
one though. My favorite scene
There's that white
was
chick who's the first one to die.
for sure the elderly lady that we see at the end of the film, which they stay at, which you get the famous Marky Mark line. I
Yeah.
know it's kind of a basic thing to say, but it's just perfect that she is so off the wall for no reason,
Yeah.
and they're so calm about it.
It's like Nicolas
insanely
Cage,
fun to
like-
watch.
Are you gonna murder me in my sleep?
It's
what?
so fun to watch.
No.
All right,
I would have to say my favorite scene would be Marky Mark's first scene in the classroom. That is just a
It's
classic.
funny. What about you?
Am I? Oh god. I don't really have a favorite scene. I think it was,
It was all bad.
It's probably pretty terrible. I mean, I really did enjoy a lot of the stuff with that old lady at the end.
Yeah, she was funny.
Just because it was just so absurd. Oh no, I don't have a favorite scene, but I have a favorite character. My favorite character is that private or that soldier
Oh,
or whatever
Private
who just
Oster.
walked
Private
like
Pow!
an idiot and
Yeah.
and had no idea what he was doing, but was still put in charge because he was in uniform.
He was a private.
He reminded me of Buster off Arrested Development. If y'all have ever
yes.
seen that.
Kate, Kate, what are your opinions on Arrested Development?
That's
Another conversation
Can
for
we-
another
That is
time.
Can
that
we
is
cut
a
his mic?
4
That's not even a
hour- Yeah, I'll
podcast.
just
That's
turn
like a
Can we
book.
cut his mic?
There we go. Turn Kate off.
Yeah.
Good. We can talk
All right,
about.
we got about 2 minutes. Let's each go around, and from 1 to the room, what do we think? What do we give it?
Okay, I'll go first. 1 to the room.
Room being 10.
The room being 10. And the room clearly being bad, and 1 being, I guess, a good movie.
No one cares.
I don't
about
know.
a rating.
I really liked it. 7. Like a 7 because
Yeah.
I thought it was maybe 7, 8 because
I
I
like
thought
the
it was
movie
funny.
7.
I laughed a lot.
I thought it was good too. I thought
Um,
there were some definitely there. We were
yeah.
talking about it during the movie. The scene where the girl goes up to Mark Wahlberg. The little girl goes up to Mark Wahlberg and is like, she whispers in his ear. You don't know what she's saying, but you hear the music and you just kind of see them hug, like basically letting him know
Well,
that her
you know what
dad
that
died.
shows you is that
knows
Shyamalan
what he's
has
doing.
some sense as
yeah,
a
sure,
director.
exactly.
He can put scenes like that together,
He's not
even in a
stupid.
horrible movie
Okay.
like this.
I think obviously like a 5 is just a bad movie, like one that's not enjoyable
Yeah.
at all, and then anything below a 5 starts to get good, and then anything above a 5 is like gets
Getting
enjoyable, and then all the way to the room. So that's why I said a 7 because it was funny, it was enjoyable, but it was still
And it
a
had a
bad
budget.
movie.
The shot. None of the shots were terrible or anything. It wasn't anything. It
Yeah.
was more of a plot
Sure.
point. I'd have to give it about a 5 too. What about you guys?
just a 5. You think it's just a bad movie?
Ooh. I think it's worthwhile to see this movie for the dialogue
I
alone.
agree.
And the concept is good again like that, and you get but based on the execution and no Shyamalan twist, I'm gonna have to give this one a 6.24.
6.2.
Jeez, you're right. You're right. 6.2.
I really enjoy this film. I laughed throughout. I'll give it
Hey,
about.
can we cut his mic again?
I'll get about a 7 or 8 out of 10. Or out of the room.
Ooh, 7 or 8. There's no
7 or 8
you got
out of
seven
the
or eight.
room.
7.5 out of the room.
7.24.
So what do we have next week?
Next
do
week
we have next
is I think it's Steel.
Oh,
Is it Steel?
Okay.
The
movie?
Shaquille
Yes.
O'Neal
Next
Steel.
Can we
week
watch
is
Real Steel with
Steel.
Hugh Jackman instead?
That's a great movie. Don't at me though. That's so next week we're going to be watching Steel. It is the superhero film starring Shaquille O'Neal, the infamous basketball player.
Infamous.
I don't really know what infamous
Famous
means.
basketball player.
Everyone loves
actor.
Shaq.
He is
Yeah.
famous. Yeah, infamous actor, I guess. Kazam is also on the list where he plays a magic genie. But
Shaq is a
that's-
great actor.
That's later on.
Said no one ever.
We'll talk about that next week on the Even Worse podcast, where the films are bad and the podcast is even worse. I'm Matt.
I'm Drew.
I'm Cade.
I'm Josh.
Thanks for tuning in.